Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Whoa, totally sick fit, bro. You're looking fleek.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, I like the way it looks too.
Yeah, you totally got like this cool dad look going on, like cool, not cool dad trying to look cool. I like it.
Okay. Hey everyone, Change the Knee Clothes Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new
Ty Segall
album, Freedom's Goblin. This is the latest record from prolific singer, songwriter, producer, multi-instrumentalist, indie, psych, punk, garage workhorse. This is his latest for the Drag City label, and his output has just been unstoppable since he had that self-titled record back in 2008. I mean, he's dropped upwards of like 30 albums, collaborative projects, EPs, live records. And now, a decade later, Freedom's Goblin is probably like his longest and most ambitious project yet. Maybe his most versatile project yet too, because this album doesn't just dabble in the sounds that Ty fans are familiar with, punk and psychedelic music and garage. But on this record, Ty manages to dip his toes into the glam rock pool as well, and dishes out a few tracks here and there that are legitimately folky and funky and freaky and experimental. And I think on this album, Ty is doing a better job of taking the reins of singer-songwriter too, because vocally I feel like his singing is so much more out front than usual, not quite buried behind the nostalgia of whatever shade of rock music that he's leaning on a given track. In the past for Ty, that has led to some pretty derivative vocal performances. I mean, occasionally that even happens on this record, like on the song When Mommy Kills, which is filled with these like pretty stale Beatles-esque harmonies. There are even some points on the song that just kind of feel like I'm listening to Of Montreal attempt like a punk indie lo-fi garage mix. Still though, some of Ty's most compelling vocal performances to date turn up on this record, especially on some of the drearier and more emotional and more heartbroken tracks, Cry Cry Cry, Rain, ALTA, My Lady's on Fire, which in my opinion are all kind of Ty's best ballads to date. I mean, even on the more upbeat moments of this record, like Fanny Dog, which kicks the entire record off, Ty's singing on this song is just full of conviction. The singing is just so much more clear and convincing than it typically is. I mean, even on songs that feel more typical for Ty, more in his usual wheelhouse, like the song Shoot You Up, the singing on there is so unsettling and kind of eerie and odd. They're gonna shoot you up. They're gonna shoot you up. Just feels so, I don't know, strung out, kind of dejected. A few of the more low-key ballads on here went kind of sour for me, sort of like You Say All the Nice Things, whose twangy guitar arpeggios get really tedious, really old, really fast, as well as The Last Waltz, which to me, I enjoyed the tune of the song, but it just kind of felt like they were taking this usual, very bland garage rock aesthetic and just lazily reapplying it to this sad saloon-style tune. The instrumentation comes together in a way that's not exactly messy in an enjoyable way, but typically on the record, the instrumentation is put together very well. Sure, of course, given it's a Ty record, it's a little noisy, it's a little rough around the edges, but for the most part, Ty kind of puts that grime in all the right places, and he does manage to, even though there are some chaotic performances on here, a little bit of extra noise, a little bit of extra fuzz, he balances a lot of this extra instrumentation out very nicely. Like, again, on the opening track to this thing, which hits the listener right away with this deluge of guitar and bass and drums and a few horns, electric piano. I also think Freedom's Goblin is one of Ty's most unpredictable records too. It's so all over the place. Typically, Ty goes into an album with a certain direction or aesthetic in mind, like one of my favorites of his, the very scuzzy, noisy, and out there emotional Mugger, or the crushingly loud Slaughterhouse, the very psychedelic and folky Sleeper, the very lo-fi and aggressive Melted, or one of his cleanest and most riffy records, Manipulator. But with Goblin, there's no real clear direction or narrative pushing the entire track list into any one direction. And as a result of this lack of boundaries on this record, Ty really gets into the weeds with some of these songs and delivers some very strange and very unexpected moments, like the weirdly funky Despoiler of Cadaver, which to me sounds like a cross-section of disco music, tonetta, and Marilyn Manson. With its funky rhythm guitars and milky bass lines, its kind of lo-fi aesthetic and very like totally strung out lead vocals. Meanwhile, the very freaky and funky psych rock track Everyone's a Winner, which is loaded with these kind of silly tongue-in-cheek falsetto vocals. I get like a real old school Beck vibe off of this track, which kind of got me thinking, it's like Ty is the Beck for the lo-fi indie garage rock set. The song Meaning has this very primal, very groovy drum intro that makes a sudden transition into the heaviest, scuzziest, most Cro-Magnon punk music you're probably going to hear all year. Very unexpected transition, not one of my favorite moments on the album, but definitely stands out as a unique song. Talkin' 3 delivers this animalistic sax rock that kind of takes it back to the days of James Chance and the Contortions. And the main Pretender, the next track, keeps the sax on deck, but for a much more funky and psychedelic experience. The song She is as harrowing as it is heavy. It's one of the jammier tracks on the record and loads the song with all of these improvisational moments, but they're often layered on top of one another in this very noisy, very chaotic, very overwhelming way. And I absolutely love it on this track when Ty is just screaming, "She!" There's a lot of great material on this thing in short, but there's just not a whole lot in terms of themes and sounds and ideas that ties it all together. I guess just go into this album expecting a bit of randomness, a bit of a shuffle kind of vibe. It is enjoyable to me, even as more of a casual Ty fan, but still, it is a very long and sprawling album. But if you're looking for an underground rock record with a lot of viscera and a kind of experimental edge, with a lot of personality and character and scope, then I think you might want to give this a shot. Occasionally, it's a little too messy and chaotic for its own good, kind of hinders the enjoyability of a track here and there. Occasionally, the album feels pretty derivative. I mean, don't go into this thing expecting to hear the most original and the most refreshing ideas in rock on the block. I mean, Ty is no stranger to kind of wearing his influences on his sleeve. And occasionally this album is kind of long-winded too, especially on moments like the final track, where I feel like the limitations of the solo abilities of Ty and his band are kind of exposed as they really try to go long, like 12 minutes long. Still though, very good record, one of the most enjoyable rock records I've heard in the first leg of this year. I am feeling a strong 7 to a light 8 on this thing, and I am going to leave it at that. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Just leave a thoughtful comment in the comments if you're feeling like you're full of thoughts. Over here next to my head is another review that you can check out. Hit that up or hit up the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, forever.